I first saw some of the Amalienborg royal palaces on my canal cruise and arranged to return another day at noon to watch the changing of the guard ceremony. The event takes place in the palace square, bounded by the 4 large townhouse-style palace buildings. There are 3 versions of changing the guard. The full-scale version is performed in winter when the Queen is in residence. A smaller version is held when there is only a Crown Prince in residence, and the simplest in the summer when there are no royalty staying. I was there for this simplest version, although even it followed due ceremony. There was a guard of honour for the replacement watch by guardsmen wearing bearskin hats. Once the escort had left the square, the second phase of the changeover started. Each of the 4 palaces round the square has sentry boxes at their main doors, some single and others double-manned. The new set of guardsmen moved progressively round the square, relieving each original guardsman in turn.
Take some room here, returning this way.
Formalities over, I turned my attention to Frederic Church, also known as the Marble Church. It is the largest dome in Scandinavia, but its name is misleading because, for cost reasons, it had been built of limestone rather than marble. From there, I carried on to Rosenborg Castle Gardens, which has many statues, including one of Hans Christian Andersen. The 400-year-old castle was surrounded on 3 sides by a moat. Only 100 years after it was built, the royal family abandoned the building to move to another palace. For the last couple of centuries, it has been open to the public as a very ornate museum. The Long Hall, also known as the Knights' Hall, had a throne for audience at one end, and at the other were the King and Queen coronation chairs guarded by 3 silver lions. Its tapestries depict scenes from the Scanian War. Across the moat from the castle was a rose garden, watched over by Queen Caroline Amalie of Ostenburg.
Rosen und Lavendel, die Kombination.
My next visit was across the road to the Botanical Gardens with its winding walkways and shady trees. A central feature was a large lake fringed with water lilies. As elsewhere in Copenhagen, there were many statues, including one of Athena and Marsyas. The most colourful part was the rock garden with its alpine plants. Heading back to the city centre, I passed through Kongens Nytorv, an enormous open space surrounded by some of the city's most opulent buildings, including the Magasin du Nord. On another glorious afternoon, I used my hotel bicycle to head out the 5 kilometres to Amager Beach Park, using some of the dedicated cycleways. When I got there, it seemed that half of Copenhagen had had the same idea and come on their bikes. But the man-made beach was huge and easily coped with everyone and their myriad activities. One very popular facility was the award-winning Kastrup Sea Bath. In the background is Middelgrunden Wind Farm, at one time the largest offshore one in the world. The diving platform was especially popular given the choice of jump heights. After a refreshing swim, I headed back to Christianshavn district to catch up on a couple of sites there. The Von Friesers Kirk, or Church of Our Saviour, is famous for its helix spire. After a 250-step climb up the inside of the steeple, I reached the small platform with a gilded railing, where I was able to get extensive views over the city, across to the entrance of Copenhagen Harbour, and down to Wilder's Marina. Back at ground level, the church's altarpiece depicted a scene from the Garden of Gethsemane, and the organ was massive, having more than 4,000 pipes. Christiania nearby is a commune of about 1,000 people who took over a former military barracks and declared it as their own country with their own rules. This alternative community has now been formalised as Foundation Freetown Christiania. The colourful murals can be photographed, but cameras are forbidden in other areas. This bridge gives access to Christiansborg Palace, arguably Copenhagen's most important building because it is Denmark's centre of power. King Christian IX stands guard at the western entrance. The palace is an enormous building which now houses the Danish Parliament and the Danish Supreme Court, and its rooms are used by the Queen for official events. Lying in the shadow of the vast palace were the Royal Library Gardens. They lived up to their reputation of being one of the most tranquil areas in the centre of the city. The Copenhagen City Hall, with its 100-metre high clock tower, has a number of points of interest. There is a room displaying Jen Olsen's astrological world clock. The front view has many functional dials, but the back surely has the beauty of a work of art. The main part of the building has a huge reception hall. There is a pleasant central courtyard garden. The windows at the clock level provided bird's eye views. The Tivoli Gardens were just below. Most Copenhagen buildings are modest in height. The building work in the square below was to create a metro station ready for the arrival of the new Circle line, which opened in late 2019.